Lovely to see you, Sandra. All right. So I'm going to ask, so I can't believe it. This is the second to last meeting. Like you have hung in here for 10 weeks and you should be very proud. This is when we were talking about the razor's edge yesterday. I would for surely say to you, thank you for sticking with us. I mean, the whole time. So we're going to get into lesson 10. And before we do that, I would love, because Sandra, you've been nice and quiet, so hopefully you can. But if you have page 172, there's a poem at the beginning of this chapter. And I would like to know if you would mind reading it for us. If you can find it now, I don't want to put you on the spot. Would you like to read it, Sandra?
Um,
Should be
forgive,
really small.
forgive.
Yes, that's
Excuse
it.
me, I have a cold on me, so if I don't speak clearly, you know why.
You're grand.
That slightly misdeed of yesterday, why should it mar today? The thing he said, the thing you did, have long since passed away. For yesterday was but a trial. Today you will succeed, and from mistake of yesterday will come some noble deed. Forgive yourself for the thoughtless. Do not condone the past, for it is gone. Reject is mistake, forget the failures and misdeed. From such experience rise. Why should you let your head be bowed? Lift up your heart and eyes.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sandra. Sorry, you'll be seeing me look at have
Yeah,
my glasses on. So I cannot think of a better way to start this chapter than this
yeah.
poem. And I'd love to hear, what are your thoughts on this, both of you? What do you think of this poem?
I actually really like it. Funny enough, I think it's really important because you have to forgive yourself now and again certain things, and and other people. Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. It makes you think that it doesn't matter what has happened, but it's your own journey. And for example, I read during the week, and one day, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I opened the book and I said, okay, I read whatever I open, and I opened that one. But last week, I think something happened, but I actually used my attitude, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm.
the sake of my child and that, and I bumped into the person and I rose above it and I felt proud. So
Well done.
I think it's a deep one because I think it's layers and layers. Like, um, if someone says I forgive just like that, it doesn't happen just like that. think.
Okay.
I think you have to go deep within yourself, and sometimes you think you forgave something, and then something comes up, and you do the work again. So I think it's an ongoing thing, and especially when certain things might happen, and you're the one that have respond over it. So you have to go within yourself deeper, and I think it's like an onion, really. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I don't think someone's I forgive you. I don't I don't think it's just a surface thing. Like, it's so easy to say I forgive you, but it's on a deeper level, I
Level.
think.
Wow.
And
Okay.
you can yeah, I really think, and sometimes certain things can happen, but it can trigger off your own feelings.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
of the own your own condition in the past, or certain things challenge that you went through. So yeah, it's interesting. It's a big subject, I think.
Yeah.
It really,
100%. Amazing.
it
All right.
really is.
Thank you so much, Sandra. How about you? Anything, Jade? Thank you, Sandra. That's amazing. Good
Uh,
insights.
around forgiveness.
Just what do you think of the poem? Just in general. Just the poem about, for yesterday was but a trial, today you will succeed, and from mistakes of yesterday will come some noble deed. Just the whole poem. What do you think of it?
It's very truthful and powerful. The past is gone, but a lot of people carry it around and allow it to inform and influence their actions of today. And as he says in the chapter, the results that we have in our life today are just the evidence. They're the outprint, the printout of our past thoughts and feelings and actions.
Yeah.
Includes when we haven't forgiven people, and then we wonder why. You hear people say things like, why does this always happen to me? Oh, it's because you're carrying that vibration, that thing around with you. And when I talk about forgiveness, so I agree with Sandra, it does happen in layers sometimes when things are a lot closer to home or they were very traumatic. I found Ho'oponopono, which is
Yeah, I use that sometimes myself.
really powerful.
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
Ho'oponopono. It's an ancient Hawaiian prayer. And basically, it's 4 statements. There's actually 5, and you go through them. So there's kind of a process, but you use that to release. And there's also the quote by, I think it's Latso. He says, basically, holding on to anger is like holding on to a hot coal with the intention of throwing at someone. The only person that you're hurting is you. And so I find that really powerful. When we don't forgive others, it's not hurting them. I've had this conversation recently with Jaden, my son, and I've said about the specific person, they're going on about their life. They're not thinking about what you're sitting here stewing over and allowing your energy to ruminate on. He's out there doing his thing, living his best life, not giving it a second thought. And the only person that it's hurting right now is you. So we have to find a way to release it and let it go. And we have thanks for helping to do that. But forgiveness is important.
I think it's important to release it, like not just to say I forgive you, write a letter and that's it. I think it's important to release it, or whatever you need to journal or whatever. I agree with that.
To let it go. Well, when you look at the start of this chapter, you always hear Bob talk about this person called Val Vanderwall, right? One of his mentors. And on the top of page 173, Val says, let us not look back in anger nor forward in fear, but around us in awareness. And this is all, as you said, I'm encouraged over the next kind of 40 minutes to think of this as how and where do I want to go with my goals and what I want to achieve? Does it help to not forgive? Does it help to rewind from the past? All that kind of stuff. And I was saying to Jay before you came on that this is just so interesting for me because Palm presents this in a different way. From I see you had the book, Sandra, so you know, because it looks like it's very well worn, like Bob's Think and Grow Rich. So you've torn it apart, which is brilliant. But on page 173, he talks about let the dead bury the dead, right? So far too many people, and it's so funny because I'm here with my family, and I haven't seen my brother in a while, and he was here, and my sister's here, and it's an interesting dynamic, and I'm actually going.
Definitely,
and I'm going through, I know, and I'm going, but I kept saying, how do I see this in the most compassionate and loving way? How do I see this? So far too many times people are looking in a rear view mirror, right? They're looking at the past and forever bringing it into the future. And you hear people say, oh, you remember the good old days, or it's the same old story. And what we are doing when we do that is we're guaranteeing to duplicate everything in the future. This is what we're doing. And so Bob says, let the dead bury the dead. And that's what he means by let go of the past and don't spend 5 minutes thinking of what happened. It's just the past. And we need to form, and I know you guys do this, but this is a reminder. Remember, this is always a reminder. This is
I think
again repetition.
we have to, I think I think you can never remind yourself, because I think it's always something there that you can need to let go.
Let go of. But when we're looking at the past, right? So,
Yeah.
and you talked about attitudes. I'm going to ask you this question now, and it was a perfect entry into this about attitude. So we need to form an attitude, or continue to form an attitude, of living in the now, living in the present moment, letting go of the past. Dwell on the now, just focus on the now. In fact, he says, what if you ask yourself, what can I do now that's going to make my day terrific? Every morning, what can I do now to make sure I'm going to have a fantastic day? And there's only one corner of the universe that can be certain of improving, and that's ourselves, right? That's the only part we can do. So the one thing we can control is our attitude. And you just said it, Sandra, before. So if we go back over the first couple of chapters when we studied attitude. So what's the definition? Can someone tell me what the definition of attitude is? What's the definition?
I suppose the way you look at things, probably.
Your thoughts?
Your thoughts.
There's three parts to your attitude.
Thoughts, your actions and feelings.
There you go. That's it. Your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions are your attitude. So how can your attitude stop you from thinking in reverse? By thinking something different, right? Yeah. Sorry, I look weird with my glasses on. So great leaders and great visionaries are always looking to the future. They don't, and that's funny because I don't know about you, but I've definitely been around friends, great leaders, and I would be like, oh God, when I had my own business, the curves, I really wish I had done this. And well, who cares? What are we doing now? And it's only then I reflect on this and I'm like, wow, they never thought about it. One of my good friends who I always thought had the most incredible attitude was like, she could leave a wake of like, not failures, but you know what I mean? Interesting things in the past. And she wouldn't give them a second thought. She was always here or always in the future. And then not only focus on what you want, but what's the key word to it. So I love this because I was like, oh God, this reminds us of our lessons before. Great leaders, great visionaries, looking towards the future. They don't spend time worrying about the past. They focus on what can be, and they move themselves into action to bring it to fruition. But also, they don't only just focus on it. It begins the letter E. They expect it. And that's the big one, expectation, right? If we look back at the differences between our conscious and subconscious mind, the awareness that you're enjoying now will help you really focus on what can be and then expect it. So we know with the conscious mind, we have the five senses, but they're not your decision makers. You are the decision maker. So you have the ability to accept or reject any thought that comes to mind. So if there's a situation where you're like, oh God, I'm going to, there could be a fight today with my brother or whatever. I'm like, no. That's what I'm seeing or hearing or thinking. But what decision do I want differently? Or I'm it reminds me of the day I went on at 12 o'clock and no one was on the call. And I was like, oh my, everybody forgot, when the reality was later on that they didn't come on. But you may have a story that you've been holding on to, but you can decide to change the story, so forget the past. Okay. We know the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious, but the subconscious accepts everything that the conscious mind tells it, right? So tell yourself you will no longer live in the past. Just say it right now. I am no longer going to live in the past. And remember our previous point, focus on what can be and then expect it. Expect it. That the part of the mind that has no ability to reject, this is a part. So your subconscious mind has no ability to reject anything. It just takes whatever's coming at it. So be careful how you talk to it. And this is what we're saying about really focusing on the future, building that image, using your imagination. I never realized how powerful our imagination was. I'd write things out, I'd do everything. But now as I'm going to bed, the movie is happening. Or when I'm waking up in the morning, the movie is happening. Because if you can see it on your conscious mind and you impress it on your subconscious, it has to come to play. And I love this as well. And I know Bob says this all the time. Realize that it takes no more energy to build a small picture than it does to build a big one. So you have unlimited potential. Once we do, we will put ourselves in that fabulous vibration, that energy, to start attract everything we want. Okay, so on page 175, Dr. Alexander Rich talks about biophysics at MIT. So this is all around the science that we have between 10 and 100 million cells, and each of those cells has the storage capacity of a powerful computer. And his estimates are true. I love the science part because it kind of puts it, cements it. That implies that the human mind has the capacity to store all of the known information in the world with room to spare. So this is kind of a rhetorical question, but the question is, does that give you hope when it comes to your unlocked potential? Does it? Like when you hear those numbers and the figures, and that your brain's only, like we're only operating whatever percentage, and there's so much there, does it give you hope, Jade, that there's so much more unlocked potential?
Yeah, it's some mind-blowing statistics. I've heard that we only apparently use like 5% of our brain. It also makes me think of us as a collective, like we haven't even scratched the surface of what's possible, and that's both exciting and scary depending on who's using it, right?
Yeah,
definitely. It gives hope, and I guess it links back to the past chapter, like just keep on going and having that razor's edge over people. The difference between me and a friend, or you're talking about family, the difference between me and my brother, for example, is that my mind is like this and I keep on going, and I've chosen to break the cycles of what I was taught and what I've seen growing up, whereas he just keeps going with it. And that's no judgment, it is what it is. But the razor's edge is that I keep opening, and there is, when you think that we haven't even scratched the surface, it's also exciting. And it reminded me, I haven't thought about this for a while, but the concept that the best is yet to come. It doesn't matter what you've achieved so far or how amazing your life is or isn't, the best is yet to come. And the better it gets, the better it gets. It all adds up, it all stacks up.
that's beautiful. Yeah, I love that expression. And I think over the last couple of weeks, one thing I've been exploring is, as my awareness grows there, because I would feel a block, resistance. And one of the things that I, as you said, Sandra, I guess, peeled of the onion was, who will I lose? Will I lose people? Will I outgrow is that sounds like judgment, and it's not meant, but will I no longer fit in where I am? You know what I mean? And yet someone said something so beautiful to me, which was like, not chosen, but you have been chosen. You can give all this to not only like talking to you guys, but like my family, and you know what I mean? Be the change, like you said, be the change for your son, be the change for everybody coming up, that they start thinking this way. Go ahead, Sandra. You were going to say something? No?
No, I just said yeah.
All right. Yeah, cool. All right. So the more we delve into our potential, as you said, the best is yet to come, the more we become aware of how great we really are. And when we become aware of this, it becomes much easier to build those images. If you've not been tapping into your potential, you may have actually set up a mental block in your conscious mind. Sorry, this is funny. To remove these blocks, put yourself in a very relaxed state. This is what I meant when we were talking even earlier about kind of the stepping back to step forward. Put yourself in a relaxed state. And once you're totally relaxed, realize you can do the things you dream about. So just taking that time out. So Bob invites us to kind of review again where we are for the last 9 chapters. So one is being comfortable around money, me and money, how much is enough, the image maker, creating the image of the person you want to become, but you're already that person now, turning it over to spirit, to God, to a higher power that is within you. And then expecting it. Expectation is a mindset. You must expect abundance. And then the law of vibration and attraction, by holding the image of what you want, by taking action and putting yourself in the level of vibration needed to attract what you want. And then taking the risk. You must be to be successful, you must look to be taking risks. And the razor's edge, we just spoke about that. And finally, don't think in reverse. Let go of the past and think only of the future. So remember, if we're able to see ourselves on the screen of our mind doing, being, or having something, then we will be able to do it. That's what I was referring to. or have that something on the physical plane as well. So we can imagine it. What you see is what you get. So always look forward to the beautiful future that lies ahead of you. It is just ahead of where you are situated right now. The past is where all life ends. Now, this is a really interesting statistic again. 90% of people spend 90% of their lives living in the past. This is really important fact. This is like when you talk about reading. It's like usually we read to a 6 or 7 age level. It's like things, stop. Okay, if 95% of people are spending 95% of their lives living in the past, ask yourself, how much time have you spent living in the past? Retelling the same old stories, reminiscing about the good old days, maybe using the same old excuses. Each one of us has the potential to do some more. So inviting you to look at this and say, okay, how much time might I be spending in the past, and making that conscious choice to change that. If you focus on the future, it will put you in the vibration you need to be in to attract the things that you desire and start living the life you've only imagined. It's so funny. He says again, and I feel like I've said all this, when someone is living, not said, but we've talked about it, when someone's living in the past, they remain that negative vibration, which you could say is energy, and there is such a small chance of any change in your level of consciousness. So continue to look at the future, look straight ahead, fill your consciousness with great and grand thoughts of what you could ultimately do and what you eventually can be. And on page 180 at the bottom, he says, become aware of the direction of your mind and where it's traveling, because ultimately that is the way your life is going to unfold. So that Polaroid image about the instant image on page 180, the shutter of your camera is like your conscious mind. So it snaps the picture, right? It sees what it does, it uses its senses. But your subconscious mind is that camera. It's responsible for doing the work. So the photograph shows the physical replica of the picture you've already taken with your mind. So if you were to take a picture of the same thing over and over again, you would do nothing more than produce the same photograph. Yet this is exactly how 95% of the population live. You must continue to remind yourself that if you persist in thinking in reverse, you'll only produce the same results you've been getting in the past. Now, that cruise, and this was such a great story, on page 181, Patty, who did seminars with Bob, was feeling out of sorts. And Bob was like, something's wrong here. This is like, she's such a great, enthusiastic girl. And he had a chat with her. What do you feel is important points in that story about Patty and the cruise? Do you remember the story?
I do. I read
Okay,
it.
awesome.
All
right.
I don't. I feel like there was bits missing from the story, like it didn't really explain, like how she went from I can't go on a cruise to I can go on a cruise, other than she just kind of thought about it. I would have liked to have seen, had a bit more detail around that. I also found it random that she works for Bob and was thinking in this way, and I also found it random that she didn't have any money when she was working. So I'm sure that's not where you were going with it all, but that's where my brain went with it.
No. I'm going to stop you. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Jade. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was just saying that I was just trying to patch in the steps between it. It was like she went from I can't afford it, I can't do this thing, to suddenly she's going on it. It's like, okay, cool. How did she get there? These are I want to know the mind shifts and what changed.
I love that you just said that. Two things. The first thing I laughed is when you said that you want to know why she was working with Bob and she was making no money. I think, and I could be wrong, but I think I know Bob worked with Earl Nightingale, and he worked with the Conant company, and he worked for them for free. He took whatever, I don't know, $50,000 job, dollar job. He was working somewhere, and he just decided to work for free. So I wonder if that was the case. But what I love, and I'm going to invite you to look at this because it's so interesting, is that you said, how did she do it, right? So in other words, how did she go from saying, I want to go on this cruise, to then going on the cruise? And the reason I love that you said that is that's what we all do, right? Which is how. And what Bob said is let go of the how, Patty. Make the decision that you're going to go on the cruise, book the cruise, make the reservations, and the money will come. And he deliberately didn't put in how she did it because it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Because she found the money. So, and you'll see this theme often when Bob talks about things. Like he talks about it, a couple he knew who wanted to buy a house and be in there for Christmas before the son moved in. And then he said, go looking for the house and the money will come. So in this particular case, he said too many times we focus on the how, and so in other words, we're focusing on our current situation. We're thinking from our senses. What we see, there's no money in our bank account. We don't, and what we see, hear, touch, smell. So in other words, we don't know how the money's going to come, And his thing is once you make the decision to book the trip, money will come. I don't know if that's that she got more work with him or whatever. And it doesn't matter because it could be up until the very last minute that the money will come. And so when you just said that, okay, so when you just asked about the how, that's what we all do. So that's to me, that's such an interesting observation. And think about, I would think about that for a little while in the sense that we all are looking for that. So the important point is book the trip, make the reservation. I was talking to a client last week. She wants to go to Lapland in December. She's like, okay, I'm working with you now as, doing thinking results. And my goal is Lapland. I said, okay, how much does Lapland cost? It's going to cost us 3,000. Okay. So go get the itinerary, go get the trip and put down the deposit. She's like, what? I don't have the money. Do you see? But the money will come once you make the decision. You follow me, Jade?
I am, yeah. I'm glad as my reflections were coming out, it's not what you asked me, and that's my personal inside stuff. But I'm glad that I've had the conversation with you. So one of my frustrations throughout the years about all of this kind of teaching is they say to do stuff like that, and I've done things like that, put a deposit down, done a thing, whatever. Point being that the way the story ended, I'm laughing, my head's already ahead. And I'm like, this is because you've been thinking in reverse. So my point is that you do the thing, like you take the action, right, this is it, I put the deposit down or whatever that first action point is. And then you end up in a position where it didn't come to fruition and, there was a shit show in between. And I could sit here and have a whole conversation. I kind of know why those things are, and everything happens for a reason, and but also relevant to this chapter, I can see that it's probably because of thinking in reverse. So I'm aware of this. This is stuff that I'm working through at the moment. This is my next layer, my next level
of awareness.
Carrying these or projecting these past traumas that I don't think about on a day-to-day basis, but they're there. And then they come up in certain situations. And I also, like, full transparency, the past couple of weeks, I feel like I've gone like backwards up here. It's like, and again, I know that's the next level coming up. And I've spoken to different people, like there's different stuff going on at the moment. So even though I've come so far, mentally, I feel like I've gone backwards. I feel like where I was 2 years ago. So I feel in this like constricted kind of space and like scared to like put a deposit down or whatever the thing may be. But, we're talking about this example. And I also see that that's because this is where the deeper work comes in. We only ever heal or let go of what we're ready to let go of. So I've gone backwards, not because I've gone backwards, but because I'm ready to clear a deeper level of something and expand more to be able to receive more.
Sometimes you contract. When I say contract, you'll see that sometimes you go backwards to take a quantum leap. Yeah, and that's and it's not even you can use arrow. I'm talking about that little slingshot. That's because it just has a bit more of a leap aspect than the bow, but in my mind. But you subconsciously observed that because that's where you're at. Do you see? Like so you're like, but just show me the how. And Okay, off topic a second, but we're on topic, but expectation might not even be for you, for anybody, because one of my accountability partners in the same space as me, whatever, one of the things she said was, is sometimes she'd book something, but would she be booking it out of fear? Like, okay, I'll book it now because it better happen. Or was she booking it because it was a natural expectation? And it doesn't even have to be the cruise. It could be anything, you know what I mean? That you're doing is the belief that it will come. And that is the next level of growth. And that's a beautiful thing. But what you're also recognizing is, hang on, maybe I am thinking of the past, of what happened before. So how do I let that go and think in the future? Because it's different now.
Yeah,
So
and visualization is coming through this, but it's coming through other messages to me as well. It's about the looking forward, and I can see that recently, I guess it's part of like the feeling like that, not looking ahead and thinking of, you know, what does the future look like? I can do all of that. I've done all of that. But it's just like, it's like a light switch gone off in my head and I forget, and you're just like here and just like, and then it's about like the opening up again.
and what if it were really easy? Because the thing that keeps coming through to me is, intellectually we can understand all this, but when we embody it and we really take it in and say, okay, yes, I am. It's so easy. This is one of the most recent in the last year mentors has kind of taught me, is it's so easy. It's so easy to change things if I want to. And how do I do it? You know, and just do it. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, I have to impress it, or I have to do it so many times. It's just so easy. I'm doing it. And I know, because I could say it, as you said, in the interest of transparency, I became a certified thinking results coach in May of 2021. But I kept saying, okay, when I do this, when I'm here. But what I've realized over the last 10 weeks working with you guys and working with my private clients is that in the doing is and being is when it comes. You know what I mean? So you can be intellectually on the sidelines and thinking reverse, like, well, what if this happens, or what if I do this? But it's like in the doing and the being. Like your launch, that's just an action. But if you're in the being and you start doing the membership and you're start whatever it is, the being will start coming. You know what I mean? And then it could be, who says you can relaunch 5 times or launch? You know, it doesn't have, you know what I'm saying? So if you're thinking in the future, all you're saying is, let's go, you know? Yeah. Anyway, I digress. But that's, did you want to say anything, Sandra, on that cruise, that Paddy cruise story? So Jade, I like, for me, that's, I were in your shoes, I'd be like, yes, that's cool. That's lovely.
I can totally relate to what she says. Like, I really think, you know, I don't know, with me before I was pregnant, and I was so disciplined in my goals and doing things, and it was like everything was thrown out the window because I was sleeping, and it was like I noticed more that my paradigm was coming up more. And when you're changing to be a mummy and things like that, a lot of paradigm comes up, and I've noticed like that because I'm doing this. I've noticed certain things, and I'm saying, okay, but I'm like that. I'm being aware of it, and I'm saying, I know that, but why? But what I read today was, right, I just picked up on, I'm reading decision making. I
Oh,
didn't
yes,
do it
yes,
one
yes.
day,
I
but
love that.
like I walked around it, you know, sometimes, and whatever. He's so active, like, because he had a good sleep. He's a
It's
bit
okay. It's okay, Sandra. Don't
he
worry.
had
Don't
sick
worry.
cough. But yeah, I read Bob chapter in Thinking the Results. I didn't read all of it. I didn't need to
Okay.
understand it fully. It says that we know what to do, but we don't need to know the information. Is we need to know what we're not doing.
How
The
about how about
bridge the
Sandra? How
gap.
about Sandra? Yeah. How about Sandra if you just needed to know what you want and then forget figuring out the how? What if you
Yeah,
just
no,
needed that
what I
part?
mean is like I don't mean that I know what I want, but I
Okay.
mean is kind of like you know, is when you're changing, like she says that different things, awareness and your whole condition and bit of trauma, which is normal, and I found that going through after having Alex, which is normal, I know that. And I'm realizing that okay, I'm reading it, but I'm understanding it more, if you know what I mean. And it's like I remember doing starting thinking the result, and I'm here, oh my god, my head is overwhelming.
Exploding. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I realize now why. I realize now why I was like that at the beginning being a mummy, because there's loads of decisions I have to make, loads of changes, and I don't need to make them all at once. It's one at a time, or um things weren't perfect, my routine and that kind of thing, because my son was sick when I had a cold, and that boy, once he sleeps, he's so active. My kids are amazing. But what I'm trying to say is, I realized that you don't need to be perfect to do something. I
That's right.
done it. I took the steps, and like I'm saying to myself that certain things I joined a mastermind class, and from that I decided I don't want to do trading. I want to do
Yeah.
something else that makes money.
Goodness.
And my friend does it. So I've been back and forth with him. I'm on a webinar tonight, and
Excellent.
I said to him, I'm definitely going to do it, but I kind of like that. I want to know more about it, but I know on a conscious level, because you can have it in your hands, and I'm more visual.
Yeah.
I think it's so easy to read something and thinking that you need to know it inside out, but we're told that in school. But
That's true. That's true.
I remember when I started thinking of results that I had this paradigm, and I don't have it as much now, that I need to do. I need to know this. I need to work on my goals. I need to, and I was spending too long at it.
Well,
And
but
what I mean is actually
yeah,
I've learned that's a paradigm.
for
That's
you.
it. When
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, it was a big,
Yeah.
and I knew. I think we learn a lot in school,
Mm,
going to school, and like that, I want to, like what you were saying, I want to break the
cycle. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
especially for my son.
Sure. Of
I
course.
think it's very important. Like if someone says something on the street,
Oh,
I will
sorry.
say it.
Yeah,
Because
of course.
at first I wasn't, and I said no, I need to. And I'm learning for myself by doing that.
And
Because
if I stop you for a second, like you said, when you increase your level of awareness and you become more aware of who you are as a person, you will see things differently. So in this chapter, when you're looking at don't thinking in reverse, and I think you're both seeing this, is that and I listen, I'm right alongside you. I'm a mentor, right? So I looking at this and I'm seeing, Helen, where are you thinking in reverse? And it's interesting because I think everything comes at the right time. And I was very upset like 2 days ago about a few things around, like I told you, interaction with family. And I said to my husband, I am rewinding. I am rewinding an old story. I'm rewinding it. I'm rewinding the interaction. I'm rewinding the words. I'm rewinding. I'm not saying it was very traumatic. It was just how it was. You know what I mean? And I said,
mm,
okay, And it's not like that, you know. And it was funny because he stopped me and he goes, what would you tell your clients or your, and I was like, you're right. So what I'm saying is it's about that awareness to stop yourself and go, okay, what am I doing? And just like you said, Jade, you just realized, oh gosh, hold on. And it's not necessarily whether it's a cruise, whether it's to start really getting out there, just go, I'm going out with this membership, no matter if I have one person, it's not going to be a perfect launch, or it's starting my coaching business and just going, I'm so, you know, the reality is, like, I'm just to read this to you here is whatever it is, whether it's trading or this membership, whether it's going full on my coaching business, the reality is so many people, and I love this here, don't make plans or set goals. And I know you guys do, but what I'm saying is because they're trying to figure everything out, right? So all you have to understand is, like in the law of attraction, that everything we receive in life comes by virtue of believing it, expecting it, getting our vibration there, and then putting it out there, rather than thinking about the past and go, it might not work. And Paul Hutsey, that story about those sales sheets, that's why he was stuck. He was thinking, oh, this is where my sales are. This is where I'm at. You know, my report garden syndrome. People are saying this is going to happen. He said, don't let the medical reports, your current situation dictate how you want to live. Create the picture and don't worry about the how, just keep going. And that 333 story, and I don't know if you haven't, because I'm going to encourage you for this week to actually write your own 333 story, right?
Yeah, I've
But
done that when I was pregnant and then I stopped it,
did
you
you?
know. That's where I got
Okay,
ideas from, you know.
good.
But
So we're going to
yeah, I
ask you
got,
to do it fresh,
yeah, I
Sandra,
have
do it
stopped
fresh.
it.
Yeah. So if you've done
Yeah,
it, you're going to do it fresh this time. So this is again,
yeah.
remember, just listen to yourself. I did it then when I was pregnant. You're going to the past. Do you see what I mean? Like we're going back
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
past.
I do get that. Do you know what?
We
I
all
noticed
do
that
that.
myself with money, right? Because growing up with me, I know when my dad and that, but I was great with money, and my mum used to come in to get money for the milkman, whatever, you know, and I wouldn't notice money gone. And I noticed that when I was doing thinking results. But sometimes it takes time to unconscious to get rid of that. And I've learned that I know I like you do all affirmations and that, and I know it comes down to belief, but it's also something can block you from if you have all that. So at the weekend, I'm here. God, I know it's coming from since I was a child. I said I'm not good with numbers, you know. And I'm
Uh-huh.
here. Oh my God, that is gonna block me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because um. I probably didn't know when I was in thinking results and that kind of thing. But sometimes, as you said, when you're grown, you have a more understanding about things, and
You
maybe
change.
you're
You
yeah,
change.
that's
Not the things
probably what
change.
it
You
is.
change,
Maybe
right?
I noticed it and knowledge it, but didn't actually say, okay, it's up to me to, do you know what I mean? On a
I do.
deeper
I do.
level,
I do.
probably.
I do. And sometimes,
Yeah,
Sandra, you know, we've been taught, depending on also what you've done, is it has to be hard. You need to write it out 10 times. You need to repeat it.
yeah,
It
yeah,
needs to
yeah,
be affirmations. What if it were just easy? This is where I'm saying tell yourself a different story. What if you can
yeah,
change your vibration in a minute? What if you can say, I'm going to do this now? So I want you to, because I'm just conscious of the time, I
yeah,
want you
okay.
to look at, no, I don't mean to cut you off at all, but
Yeah.
if you look at the 333 story, are you familiar with the 333 story, Jade?
I remember reading this book years ago.
Okay, so go back to on page 187. I'm going to encourage you to both go back, besides reading the next chapter, right, for next week. I'm going to encourage you to go through this 333 story. So Bob Templeton, I would have asked you, but I'll just summarize it. So they had the tornadoes in Canada and they wanted to raise $3 million in 3 days to
Oh,
support it. And
Helen,
yes.
what page is it
Mhm.
on again?
It's page 187. Okay. So,
187. Okay,
so,
cool.
so the question that I was going to ask you is Bob Templeton was using both the conscious mind and the subconscious mind when he started this 333 idea. And I was going to say, can you tell me what he was using? But if you need to go back over it, I'll tell you that the conscious mind has the ability to accept or reject any idea. So what he said is I don't want any negative ideas. So if he said, I want to bring all the radio stations together to do this radiothon, they would say, oh, sorry, radio stations won't work together. Next. He would always say next. So, like anytime a negative idea came up, he wouldn't entertain it, right? So when you're thinking of a big idea and you're handing it over to subconscious mind, you don't want to say, no, I can't do it. No, I can't do it. You're just going to keep saying, yes, I can do it. By getting emotionally involved with the idea, he started to attract it. And that's what happened on the subconscious level, is he got the whole team to get very involved on this big idea of raising this money. And all of a sudden, different ideas happened. And he raised $3 million in 3 days. Now, he had just come off Bob's seminar and everything, but just reread that, because I think this can be, and this goes back to what we were saying. We've been studying this material for the last 10 weeks. And I'm sure that you have seen some changes, hopefully dramatic changes, but even if there's small changes in the way you're thinking. I think, Jade, that contrast that you're feeling is you entertaining those new ideas. And there's a little bit of, you know what I mean? A little bit of XY chaotic vibration going on because you're entertaining new ideas.
Maybe.
I want you to think about it. And the more aware that you become, the quicker you can reject or neglect the thoughts that are not within your goal. And this is exactly what you're saying, Sandra. In summary, or what I'm observing is, the more you become aware, the more you go, nope, I'm not taking that on. Right? Because before, you might not even notice that, So
no, it wasn't that. I was noticed, like, I learned from thinking results not to react. And when I was pregnant, I probably did react a little over silly things, and I realized it wasn't me. It was just hormones. But I suppose what I'm trying to say, yeah, changes. But I used to probably hide away, but now it's like, hi, have a nice day now, just rise higher. I just said, you know what, I'm going over. I ordered my baby's birthday cake, and I said, you know what, they say hi, they don't. I'm not going to, I don't create drama. Went to the toilet, and I just said, you know what, and I came home, and I really had a great time. Like, of course, I suppose I cleaned up here and that kind of thing, used my energy and that kind of thing. Instead, I realized, no, do you know what? I'm not. I'm being me. I have a son, and I have a bigger purpose now to teach my son what's right behavior, what good. Do you know what I mean? And
so basically, you're rejecting things that are not
yeah.
Period.
Of course, maybe I need to write a few things to make sure it's gone in my system. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I haven't kind of dwelt. Well, maybe at times it's coming in, but I know that's the old me.
Yeah, and
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm aware that's the old me, and I'm here thinking, listen, probably doing, but I wouldn't have I learned in thinking results not to react. I used to react before that. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say, I am aware that's the old me. It's not me. It's not who I am, and I suppose
that's where you're at. That's brilliant. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. What I'm going to encourage you to do is think of something big. No, all of this is really learnings, right? I'm just I'm just encouraging you. You're seeing it, right? And you can put it in the context of all this emotion stuff, just saying, is it in line with who I want to be and my goal? And it's not. So I'm going to be this way. And then you're recognizing it and you're saying, yeah, well done. Like, well done. So I want you to think of something big that you want to do, okay, today, something big, business-wise, family-wise, whatever it is. And something you know that'll stretch you. And I would love you to use the 333 concept. So go over and read it. You'll get it when you read it again. And
Okay,
look at that concept to
what
accomplish it and come
page is
back with
that
me.
on? I don't think I heard
All
you.
right, you might have a different book, but it's literally the last part of this chapter.
Oh,
So
right.
do not think in
Okay,
insert
okay.
verse. It's the last part of this chapter.
Yeah, the
It's the
facts and
333
law of
story. It's
prosperity.
page 187 on my thing, but it could be different on both of yours. So take that, think of something you want to do today, something you know that'll stretch you, and use the 333 to work through it and accomplish it. And let's talk, see how you got on next week.
Oh no, I do have
And
it. That's grand.
super. Okay, so do the 333 exercise, and then we're going to be reading chapter 10, the vacuum law of prosperity, for next week. And next week will be our last week. So I'd love to you to come back with any kind of you know, how you're getting on. So I'm going to stop the recording here. Hold on a second, and I will